Let's talk about westward expansion and how that affected Native Americans. Okay. Uh, Once I'm done with this lesson, you may look at those cowboy movies a little differently. You feel me? Those of y'all that like to watch Bonanza and John Wayne movies and all that kind of shit. Okay, you may look at it a little differently once I finish this. Okay. But before we get into it, gotta remind you, I am your homeboy first, and this is the realest, most entertaining show in the game. Put it on some. And this is realest history. You feel me? Now, just to remind you, I know I've been away for a while. Unfortunately, my mother passed away. Okay. But y'all remember now, I used to be a award-winning U.S. history teacher. Okay. In the state of Mississippi. All right. And I have brought my knowledge to my show in response to the election uh, of Donald Trump. Okay. And I think in this 100 days, y'all see uh, that clearly some people were misinformed. Clearly, they were misinformed by electing him. Okay. So I'm just trying to do my part to educate the populace. So hopefully people don't make such a dumbass decision again. Okay. So let's get into it. Let's get into it, y'all. Let's not waste any time. We got work to do. All right. So last time I talked to y'all, I talked to y'all about the quote unquote New South. Okay. So now we're going into westward expansion. If you missed that, make sure you go back and watch that previous segment in previous chapters. We've already talked about industrialization. We've already talked about immigration and urbanization. Okay. And so in this chapter, we're talking about changes that were going on in the South in the during the late 1800s, and we're also talking about westward expansion. Okay, so again, let's get into it. All right, so we're going to compare the ways Native Americans and white settlers viewed and used the land. Secondly, we're going to describe the conflicts between white settlers and Indians, and lastly, we're going to evaluate the impact of the so-called Indian Wars. Okay, so here's some vocab for us. Let me get this banner out of the way. All right, so these are just some terms and people that are relevant to this particular section. Okay, first of all, reservation, specific area set aside by the federal government for the Indians' use. Secondly, we got Sand Creek Massacre, an 1864 incident in which Colorado militia killed a camp of unarmed Cheyenne and Arapaho Indians. Next, we got Sitting Bull, who was a Sioux chief, respected as a fighter and spiritual leader, legendary man. Okay. Next, we got the Battle of Little Bighorn, which was an 1876 battle in which the Sioux defeated U.S. troops led by Colonel George Custer. Next, we got Chief Joseph, leader of the Nez Perce, who surrendered after trying to lead a group of Indian refugees to Canada. Next, Wounded Knee. Y'all have probably heard of that one. 1890 confrontation between U.S. cavalry and the Sioux that marked the end of Indian resistance in the Ghost Dance War. Assimilate, a very, very, very important word to remember. All right. To adopt the culture and civilization of the dominant group in a society. And lastly, the Dawes General Allotment Act, an 1887 law that divided reservation land into private family plots. Okay, so that's our key terms and people for this particular section. Let's get it, y'all. All right, so the overarching question is, how did the pressures of westward expansion impact Native Americans? Okay, it reads, as American settlers continued to push west, they increasingly came into conflict with Native Americans. Such conflict often led to violence with tragic results. Again, once I'm done with this, you may look at those cowboy movies differently. Let's roll, y'all. All right. After the Civil War, about 250,000 Indians lived in the lands west of the Mississippi. Okay. Native Americans came from many diverse cultures. They had different belief systems. They spoke different languages. They lived in different types of houses, and they ate different foods. Okay. Now, first of all, these slides, which I didn't create these slides, these are the slides that came with the textbook that I used to teach out of. Okay. So if you disagree with anything that is written here, you are disagreeing with scholars, PhD, motherfuckers that got PhDs in history. Okay. They are the ones that wrote this shit. Okay. So let me tell y'all that if you forgot. Also, you will see that they kind of go back and forth between Native Americans and between saying Native Americans and Indians. Of course, you know, Christopher Columbus is the man who is credited with discovering America. Of course, we know that's bullshit. You already had people living here. Okay. But that motherfucker, when he came over here, he thought he had landed in India. Okay, when he landed down in those group of islands and stuff down there in what we now call the West Indies, or we call it the Caribbean. He landed down there, and he thought he was in India, so he called the people he met Indians. You feel me? And that shit stuck. So that dumbass shit stuck. So that's why they're called Indians. So I used to make my students say Native Americans, but I had to also prepare them for when they would see Indians in text. Okay. And I think a lot of tribes do respond to being called Indians or American Indians. It's kind of like you get called something so motherfucking long, you eventually just go ahead and say fucking embrace it. Kind of like black people in the N word or women in the B word. You know what I'm talking about? So it's kind of like that. All right, kind of like that. You feel me? Not saying that calling them an Indian is as derogatory as calling a black person the N word or calling a woman the B word. I'm just saying that's not who they truly are. India is across seas over there. You feel me? India is in Asia. But Christopher Columbus is dumbass, who President Trump wants to, resurrect the stature of that bitch. He didn't know where the fuck he was. So that's how they end up being called Indians. Okay. So just wanted to put that out there in case you didn't know. Okay. All right, let's keep it moving. Yeah, the overall thing of this slide, though, is y'all see that these Native American groups ain't just the same now. All of them wasn't just living in no goddamn teepees and wearing feathers and shit and doing what you see in the cowboy movies. Yo, they are diverse. You know what I'm saying? They had different beliefs and shit. They spoke different languages. They lived in different type of homes. All of them didn't live in no goddamn teepee, and they ate different foods. These were different peoples, different tribes. Hell, they had beef and shit. Okay. Um, so I know cowboy moves and shit can be misleading. All right, let's keep moving. All right. The diverse Indian peoples, however, shared a common view toward nature, a view that conflicted with that of many white Americans. Okay. Let's look at the Native American view of nature. It reads, Native Americans saw themselves as part of nature and viewed nature as sacred. On the other hand, many white Americans viewed the land as a resource to produce wealth. Okay. So y'all see those two ideals, that shit conflicts. There's a clash there. Okay. Because you got one group of people who are holding nature in reverence. Many Native American groups, they name themselves after shit in nature. Meanwhile, white Americans like, man, what we do to get this money, man? You shit. Try to get this money. How can I use this land to get this money? I'm trying to mine something. Hell, how can I use these trees to get some money? You know what I'm talking about? I can use that water. The water got some fish in it. You know what I'm talking about? Because I can not only eat the fish, goddamn it, we can sell them motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? What can I do to get some money up off this shit? So that shit, those two different viewpoints clashed. During the 1800s, the government carried out a policy of moving Indians out of the way of white settlers. At first, Indians in the east were moved west into the Indian territory of the plains. As frontier settlers continued pushing west, however, this plan changed. Indians were forced into reservations, no longer free to roam the plains. All right, so this is outside the purview of this particular class that we're doing, okay? This is U.S. history from 1877 to the present, but some stuff, really, all things from the past can explain the present and predict the future. That's why history is so important, okay? So even though we're in the late 1800s in our overall studies, there's some shit right here that's talking about from the earlier 1800s that plays a role in everything y'all about to see happen, okay? And one of those things from the earlier 1800s was the Indian Removal Act, a law that was signed by Andrew Jackson, who, for my real ones from Mississippi, that's the namesake of Jackson, Mississippi. Andrew Jackson, he's a very popular motherfucker down here in the South and shit. You know what I'm talking about? He's one of those presidents who was a slaveholder, or I should call him an enslaver. I prefer to use that term. He flaming racist ass motherfucker. And Native Americans got smoked with him too because he didn't want to sign the Indian Removal Act. You know, so you may have heard of the Trail of Tears. The Trail of Tears, where these folks were forcibly removed from their lands east of the Mississippi and forced to walk over there to quote unquote Indian territory, you know, like Oklahoma and shit like that. And it was more than just them being sad about the shit. A lot of motherfuckers died along that trail. You know what I'm saying? Uh, it's known one of those heinous things in our country's history. You feel me? But as you see here, at one point, white settlers still weren't satisfied. You know, they were like, "Yeah, I know we said this land west of the Mississippi that that gonna be for you, but I don't know. We kind of want that shit too." So then they start forcing these Native Americans onto these reservations. Two other crises also threaten Native American civilizations: disease and the loss of the buffalo. Let's look at disease first. Settlers introduced diseases to which Indians had no immunity. Okay, and that's what really wiped them out. More than the shit you see in the cowboy movies with the shoot 'em up, bang bang. That shit happened too. Okay, but and the fucked up ass treaties. More than even that, it was this damn disease that wiped them out. Here, how the fuck you gonna defend your land when you dying from these diseases that these goddamn white settlers have that you have no immunity to? All right. And the loss of the buffalo, says settlers slaughtered buffalo herds. So again, go back to what we just talked about. How Native Americans tended to view nature as sacred, as holy. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, they would kill the buffalo, but shit, they were using that goddamn buffalo for everything. You gonna eat that meat, you feel me? You gonna goddamn use that hide, you gonna use the fur, you using every goddamn part of that shit. Use the teeth and bones for tools and shit, jewelry, all kind of shit. You're not wasting it. You know what I'm saying? You feel like the buffalo is a lifeline for you. Well, shit, some of them white settlers just come out there and kill them motherfuckers for fun. Fuck it. Just for fun. You know? That shit really, really, really hurt their civilizations. Next, some Native Americans fought to defend their lands, but attacks and retaliation led to distrust and to tragedy. The Sand Creek Massacre saw an unarmed camp of Indians under the U.S. Army protection killed by Colorado militia. Promises were made and peace treaties were signed, but they often were broken. Okay. See, a lot of times them cowboy movies leave that kind of shit out. Have you ever seen a cowboy movie address the Sand Creek Massacre? I haven't. And my mama used to love cowboy movies, man. At one point, I was like, Mom, why won't you stop watching? After I learned all this kind of stuff, why won't you stop watching? This is racist. But she grew up in that time where that's what was on, and that generation of black folk love that shit, you know. But it makes me think of James Ball when I saw him on YouTube in a video. He was being interviewed, and he talked about once upon a time watching similar stuff that my mama watched. And he said that he used to find himself cheering for the Cowboys to defeat the Indians. Until one day he realized that, hey, he the Indian. Meaning that his life was more akin to what the hell the Native Americans were going through than the damn Cowboys. Because both groups, the Native Americans and the black people, getting fucked over. That was some real shit. Let's keep moving. All right. Frustration turned to violence as the government moved to crush Indian resistance. The Red River War led to the defeat of the Southern Plains Indians. The Sioux were victorious at the Battle of the Little Bighorn, and Chief Joseph and the Nez Perce surrendered after attempting to retreat to Canada. As their way of life slipped away, some Indians turned to a religious revival based on the ghost dance. The ritual preached that white settlers would be banished and the buffalo would return. Fearful of insurrection, government officials tried to ban the practice. Okay, so you had Native American groups feeling like we're losing our land, the buffalo slipping away, you motherfucker killing the buffalo off. We dying from these damn diseases and shit. So, like many people do, they turn to their religion. They turn to their spirituality. They turn to their God. And this was a ritual of theirs, the ghost dance. Just like so many religions, Christianity got rituals. The Last Supper is a ritual. Communion, that's a ritual. Baptism is a ritual. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I think many people, when you look at other religions, you see something they do, you be like, oh, that's so weird. But then you don't look at your own shit as weird or different. It's all ritual. So with their ritual, shit, they were hoping that God would get rid of the folks who were causing them all this harm, the white settlers. And they were hoping that the buffalo would return. Now, if you the government and you see this shit, hey, you scared. You scared. Not saying that they believed that their prayers would come true, but they were scared that this would give these motherfuckers some hope and make them want to fight and kill them. So what do? They banned these people. They banned their ghost dance. Telling you, might look at them cowboy movies differently. Let's keep it moving. In an effort to end the ghost dance, the government attempted to arrest Sitting Bull. However, he was killed in a confrontation with U.S. troops. More than 100 Indians who fled were killed at Wounded Knee. The Indian Wars were over. Now, some critics attacked government policies and defended the Indians' way of life. Most leaders, however, hoped that Native Americans would assimilate into American life. Now, remember I told you that that word assimilate means to blend with the majority group. That's all it means. Okay. So basically, you had these folks thinking, these government officials saying, hey, Native Americans would be all right. They just be more like us, white people. That's some racist ass shit. But that's what they were on. Take a look at this picture. Take a look at that picture. Those don't look like Native Americans to you, do they? Hmm? You don't see any teepees. You don't see any war paint. You don't see any feathers and shit. Yeah, they in a classroom. Just like some of your ancestors might have been in the classroom back then. Dressed like white people. These people have been assimilated. Let's look at some other examples. I got a couple other pictures for you. These are dope. Take a look at this picture right here. Okay, take a close look at this picture right here. Now, if you're driving or something like that, hey, just wait till, till later on. Okay, wait till later on. All right, but if you can, take a look at this picture. Could you tell that this is the same man? Same man, y'all. Same man. It's just in one picture he's been assimilated, and the other he hasn't. Okay. Look at all the differences. You see him there with the darker skin. That's because he was out there doing what men would do in his tribe. You take your ass outside. You go and roam the plains. You know what I'm talking about? You gotta go and hunt. You know what I'm saying? You outdoors. You outside. When he gets assimilated, now he's indoors. Skin lightens up. Okay. When he's repping his culture, you see he got long hair, don't care. When he's assimilated, he got a haircut. You know what I'm talking about? When he's repping his culture, got his ears pierced and all that kind of shit. Now maybe they were starting the process of assimilation over here, because you do see that he has these crucifixes on. I don't know. Maybe that was a symbol for Native Americans too. I'm not aware of that. Not aware of that. Okay. I know over here in that other picture, shit, he just suited and booted. You know what I'm talking about? Interesting picture. All right, let's do another one. In this picture, you see a woman getting married. But you see, she has two different types of attire on. In one picture, she's dressed as one would dress in her culture when you get married. Again, long hair, don't care, She has on attire that fits her culture. But then over here on the other side, she get married like the white folk get married. She's been assimilated, on the white dress. He has on the dark suit. Now, if you're a black person watching it, you might say, well, hell, that's how I got married, because your ass been assimilated too. Black people in America, because of slavery, hell, we got assimilated as well. We were forced to take on white culture too. So I used to show these pictures to students. And they used to find them interesting, and of course I do as well. Last one, y'all. All right, it says in 1887, Congress passed the Dawes General Allotment Act to encourage assimilation. Let's look at what it did. First of all, it replaced the reservation system with an allotment system. Secondly, it granted each Indian family its own plot of land. And lastly, it specified the land could not be sold for 25 years. So basically, y'all, what they were trying to do is get the Native Americans out of that way of thinking of going and roaming the plain, and getting them out of that thinking that the land doesn't belong to any one person, that the land, God gave the land to us all. No, they wanted Native Americans to be on some private property shit like they were. Because if you can get them to believe in just having this one little plot of land, goddamn it, we can have all the rest of it. You know what I'm saying? Real slick shit. Okay. So if you see Dawes General Allotment Act, think about assimilation and how the U.S. government was trying to force that shit on Native Americans. Okay. All right. So just to review, y'all, we talked about reservations. All right, and how these Native Americans got forced onto that shit. All right, we talked about the Sand Creek Massacre, which was just a heinous incident. The killing of unarmed Cheyenne and Arapaho Indians. You know, we talked about Sitting Bull, the legendary Sitting Bull. All right, the Battle of Little Bighorn, which that's another one that I'm sure y'all already knew about just from cowboy culture. You know what I'm talking about? You hear about George Custer, you hear people talk about Custer's last stand and shit. All right, we talked about Chief Joseph, um, the Battle of Wounded Knee, the word assimilate. Told y'all to remember that. Okay. And Dawes General Allotment Act, and that's tied to assimilation as well, trying to force Native Americans um to live on family plots, as it said, but really trying to get them out of their way of thinking about land as communal property, as God gave this to us all, and hell, just trying to make their ass get on some private property way of thinking. But really, the ultimate hustle was to take all the rest of their goddamn land. That's what they wanted to do. But got through another one, y'all. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Like I said previously, if you missed any of the other sections that we did, make sure you go back and check that out. Okay, make sure you go back and check that out because uh, all this builds on each other. Okay, I like to teach history as a good movie. Okay, so if you miss some parts, you ain't gonna understand other parts. You feel me? So make sure you go back and watch all of it. I do have it. Each segment is in uh the episode playlist for my various put it on some episodes, but each segment is also in its own playlist entitled Realist History. Okay, so you can find each one there, whichever playlist you choose uh to use. You feel me? But watch them all. Watch them all and share them all to all the history enthusiasts, okay? Because I'm gonna give you the realest history that's out there here on the realest, most entertaining show in the game. Put it on some.